That's right. You're listening to another episode of the Co-Main Event Mixed Martial Arts Podcast. I'm Chad Dundas. That's Ben Folks. We're both longtime MMA journalists, and for the last 14 years, we've been meeting here every week to break down all the action in the wild, weird, and occasionally wonderful world of mixed martial arts. And Ben, there is frankly an overwhelming amount of stuff to talk about coming out of the UFC's big birthday bash at the White House last night. We're going to talk about as much of it as we can, and that includes the fights, where Justin Gaethje certainly pulled off one of the greatest upsets in UFC history, defeating Ilia Topuria to win the undisputed lightweight title. You had Cyril Gane beat Alex Pereira to put the UFC heavyweight division in kind of an interesting place moving forward. But you know, no matter how great the fights were never going to be the whole story of this night. The UFC made sure of that during the lead up to this event, where they did not talk about the fights at all. Mm-hmm. So unlike the UFC, we will talk about the fights today, but we will also talk about all of the other stuff that happened, a lot of which was very weird. And this is an event that I feel like we need to approach with some nuance, which I know everybody hates. Everybody's going to hate approaching this with some nuance.
People fucking hate nuance, man. On the internet, this thing goes out over the internet. You know that, right?
Everyone is going to want it to be one thing or the other, but a lot of things can be true at once. And I think we're going to have to try to strive for some nuance here today. But I guess in the interest of starting off on an absolutely positive note, Ben, the Marine Corps band was fucking phenomenal. It was one of the coolest things I think we've ever seen at a UFC event. They just absolutely knocked it out of the park all night long.
I gotta say, I owe the Marine Corps band an apology. I was not familiar with your game.
I don't think we can be blamed for that, man.
It's true. I mean, most people, I think, do not spend a whole lot of time sitting around thinking about the Marine Corps band. And so I guess if you had asked me, I would have claimed to have been aware that there was a Marine Corps band. Why wouldn't there be? I guess it makes sense. I didn't realize they had it like that, though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They were really the breakout star of this thing. I had to go to the Wikipedia page, Chad, for the United States Marine Band, because I was just like, I need to know more about these people. The president's own, as they are sometimes known. And see, the thing is, somebody, again, proving the adage that somebody in the CME audience is an expert in everything. When we mentioned, we were at first noticing the Marine Corps band, we were getting excited about them. We were like, man, they're really good. And we were like, are they actively recruiting really good musicians and being like, join the Marines, but don't worry, we won't send your ass to war. We want you to play clarinet for us. and somebody told us that they are specifically recruited, and that the recruiters for the Marine Corps band are highly successful because apparently it's a good gig. The Wikipedia claims that they recruit already experienced musicians, have a rigorous audition procedure, as it says. My favorite little detail, I mean, they do have to go through boot camp, they have to go through training, all that kind of stuff. They're subject to the same physical standards and all that. My favorite bit is the president's own band members wear rank insignia with a lyre replacing the standard crossed rifles.
Okay.
I think that's nice.
Interesting. That is nice and interesting. And honestly, I mean, even though, yes, we know that it is a military band, this is part of this event that you could say is like as explicitly non-political as you get.
Yeah.
That the Marine Corps band showed up and absolutely slayed almost everybody's walkout music on the night, including Derek Lewis, who typically walks out to a song by Fat Pat, Houston rapper Fat Pat. And the Marine Corps band absolutely nailed it, man. They did it. It was stunning. Stunning.
Well, that's one of the things that was most impressive to me is the range that this band had. Because you're playing walkout music for UFC fighters. you're going to play a lot of different type of shit. Different people going to want different type of stuff for their walkout music. And they crushed it all.
Mm-hmm.
It was a delight to hear them every time. It also, the UFC, we talked about a little bit how they did live music walkouts for Conor McGregor and Chad Mendes all those years ago. Got Sinead O'Connor to sing Conor McGregor's song. Normally, this is the kind of stuff where like Dana White has to be dragged kicking and screaming to do something cool like this. But when you see somebody doing like live music version of the walkout songs, you realize, oh yeah, this is rad every time.
Yeah.
The only exception when it's not rad is, boxing events I've seen where we have a rapper walk out with the dude and try to rap as like they're doing the walkout. And you're just like, it doesn't quite translate the way you want it to. But when you have the entire band doing like their own arrangements of various walkout songs, I sit there and just be like, they class this shit up just
They
by being there.
absolutely did. They absolutely did just by being there. And like this is definitely the most successful live music performance at an MMA or like wrestling event that I've ever seen, because they can go poorly.
Yeah.
But this one was just phenomenal. It was so good. It was the one of the best parts of the evening, frankly.
Well, and I think that one of the big concerns people had when they saw this giant structure go up on the White House goddamn lawn was people went, tacky. This shit is tacky and trashy and looks like some county fair ass shit, which in fairness it did. And then when you see it lit up at night, but you also see the band there and you hear the band playing, you're like, they redeemed that in a way that the UFC owes I hope the UFC is making donations. I hope they have a scholarship fund or some shit like this for the Marine band, because they owe them for this one.
Yeah. Well, we did get a lot of listener mail about this event, and it might not surprise you to learn that some of the responses we got were mixed.
See, this is the big homie Chuck Mendenhall. He wrote about this just like the day or two before the event. He was over there on the ground for us Uncrowned in Washington, D.C., and he referred to this event as a Rorschach test, and it absolutely was that, I think.
Yeah. So if you'll bear with us for just a minute, I want to read 4 emails that we got showing the sort of split decision, if you will, about what people ultimately thought of this event. We got this one from Cock Lesnar.
Okay.
He writes, "You seemed to lose the plot a bit with negative hyperbole before the White House event. So I hope you are willing to apologize publicly to Uncle Dana afterwards. What an amazing show it was. I know it is easy to become jaded and grumpy old men, but I think a bit more balance would make for a better podcast, and enjoying things a little would make you happier." Now,
okay.
Well, no, we're going to go on. We're going to go on. Although I think
I'm going to come back to that last part.
Well, I'm going to come back to the expression seemed to lose the plot. I feel like that's a very interesting way to put this, and I do want to come back to that. We got this one from J-Dog, who wrote in to say, "Well, we did it, guys. We stayed up till the wee hours in the one true time zone to watch UFC Freedom 250. 7 fights, 7 finishes. As a longtime combat sports fan, I have to reluctantly say it. They did it. The UFC pulled off the greatest event it ever has and probably ever will on the fucking White House lawn. Fat Pat being played by the president's orchestra. Little to no mention of D-Tiddy's B-Day bash. An overrule on a doctor stoppage. What an incredible night of fights. What say you, gentlemen?" We got this one from Evan Rabelais, who wrote in to say, "This is the tackiest fucking thing I have ever laid eyes on. Dystopian to levels I thought only existed in parody. I think all hope may be truly lost." And then we got this one from subject line Home of the Brave. I'll have to find the author of this thing in a second, but wrote in to say, "I am an OEF veteran. Watching the opening of the UFC White House upset me. Then these jokers had the nerve to try to sell me Trump coin and put the ugly ass CEO whatever BS sponsored this. I love MMA, but I hate that the political mania of MAGA was welcomed in, not invaded, but welcomed. There is there is a way to stay neutral. The NBA and NFL have done it well enough. And then this last one from Morgan Macabre, who wrote in to say, last week you guys asked what a successful event would look like. And as weird as it was, I think this was largely it. Josh Hokit's Michelle Obama BS and the pre-event controversy with that Daniel Cormier-Eric Trump interaction aside, the most objectionable thing I saw was all the AI slop generated American history for idiots.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it was weird as shit watching Ilya Topuria and Alex Pereira walk through the Oval Office on their way to an ass whipping, but once you get past the bizarre nature of the event, it was generally pretty standard issue patriotic stuff. I know there's plenty to criticize, but can you two discourse on the fact that it could have been much, much worse from a political standpoint? Now, I just want to say, to pick up with the last point and then circle back, I think this point about how it could have been much, much worse is undeniably true.
Yes.
And so I want to start by saying kudos to the UFC, frankly, for using as light a touch as they did on almost all of this stuff. We expected it to be worse. We thought Donald Trump would be in the cage. We thought maybe he would get a championship belt. We thought he was going to be all over the broadcast. He wasn't as much as they could have done. And frankly, the history of America vignettes, which were weird and at times terrible and at times super random, and I bet we will talk more about them, they did play it as close to the middle as a mainstream telling of the history of the US could be in this venue, I think. So I think we're going to say some negative stuff, but like I said, nuanced take on this event. More things can be true than just one. I do think you have to say the UFC did pull it off about as well as the UFC could have, frankly.
Yeah, it is weird to sit around here and offer as praise that it could have been worse. But that was something that came to my mind clearly watching, because I feel like some of this, they benefit from our lowered expectations, because we went into this being like, oh boy, if they fawn all over Trump the way they do when he just shows up at an event in Miami, what are they going to do on his birthday on the White House lawn at an event, which clearly it has like a political component to it, and always did from the beginning and always was going to. Like, how hard are they going to go on the Trump love and the Trump propaganda? And especially the build up to this event, they kept over and over again trying to manufacture this story about how Donald Trump saved the UFC and he's our hero. Just complete bullshit. And so we thought, man, they're going to really turn that dial up on fight night, and the rest of us are going to have to sit there through it and swallow the bullshit. And they didn't. And I was very surprised by that. I thought that, I wondered how much of that was the UFC sort of seeing this moment coming and being like, we might want to be careful on how we go at this one.
Yeah, I think it was. I think it was.
And so, they did a lot less like cutting to Donald Trump, making him the focal point than they will do, than they have done when he shows up at some of these events. It also made me wonder, we talked about it as we were doing our watch party. They have that long shot of Trump and Dana White walking out together, making the long walk down to the cage.
Long walk.
Trump did not seem to be loving his experience at that point. Like, the look on his face was sort of like a grimace.
Most of the time that they showed him, he seemed to be having a terrible time, unless someone was like actively expressing their fealty to him at the side of the cage. Every time they showed him, he looked unhappy.
Yeah. Made me wonder if he's, we've heard that he's dealing with health stuff and is in and out of the hospital, apparently just because he loves going there and taking the tests and acing them. So we're told, but it didn't seem like he was doing great. And so maybe, I don't know if that was part of it. I also suggested he might be the kind of person that gets very reflective on his birthday, thinking about how another year has slipped through his fingers.
Hey man, we've all been there where a party sounds fun until the night of the party. And then you're like, oh God, do I really got to do the party? Like, sounded good at the time, but
just wants everybody to go home at that point.
He's probably like, I got work tomorrow, I got to get up and be president, so can't stay up too late,
That said, it is a little weird to be sitting around here being like, we expected such a hardcore stomach turning propaganda in between fights. The fact that you didn't do that is cause for praise.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't as obnoxious as it could have been by a lot. The AI stuff for those history vignettes, again, still not as bad as it could have been, because
Yeah.
we've seen whenever the Trump administration goes to tell anything about the history of America, it is very selective and at times just bullshit.
Yeah.
I was surprised that there were even any of the little like shots that they're showing, or AI shots they're showing, even made reference to the civil rights movement. I mean, it is a little ironic where you're like, yeah, you guys want to celebrate the civil rights movement at the same time you want to go to court to try to undo it. But I was surprised that you're willing to even include that in there.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like it seemed, the whole thing, I was like, it seems just like kind of random, the
There
stuff
were a
that they're
lot of
throwing in
random
there.
facts, a lot of just
Yeah.
random facts.
And I get it. I mean, we're talking about 250 years of American history. So, but it didn't seem like there's necessarily a narrative that you're trying to go for, other than just like, John Anik gonna speed read some stuff about John Adams and the history of the White House itself. We're gonna make a mention of Pearl Harbor and World War II. You know, the storm of the beaches at Normandy. Then we got these like sort of trying to mythologize certain moments in American lore, and at times doing a better job than others. I'll talk more about that later. But again, not as bad as it could have been. Cock and Lesnar, you listen to me, you motherfucker. This thing about losing the plot beforehand, you have to realize and understand, acknowledge that what we're doing, trying to align the UFC with the Trump administration, not even the United States government, not the White House, the Trump administration, helping to push their aims, push their message. We got the right wing ads playing at the fan fest. We're really pushing a certain political agenda. That's what the UFC is allowing themselves to be used for, and they're putting their shoulder into that. That was always part of the plot. You're asking to.
That was the plot.
That was what they're doing here. And so to ignore that, especially when the UFC didn't seem to want to focus that much on the fights beforehand, like, that's losing the plot. The idea that enjoying things a little would make you happier, motherfucker, we be enjoying shit all the time. That doesn't mean we have to enjoy absolutely everything, especially we're at a fraught moment in American history right now.
Yeah.
We're looking around, we're waking up every day being like, how are we still going to keep doing this? Are we the American democratic experiment? Are we still continuing to do it? Because there are troubling signs. And so for the UFC to very clearly choose a side, and even come right out and say it's choosing a side. Dana White going in an interview saying, we support Donald Trump. And you're supporting a guy where like he's sharply divided this nation more than at any other point in my lifetime, certainly as an American. So that's always going to be part of the thing. I don't think you have to stick your head in the sand and act like that's not happening. I think we can show up. We could enjoy the actual fights. We had some good fights. We had some really great, like, memorable action that we'll be thinking about for a long time. But they made the setting part of the star of this show. Yeah. And the setting at this time, and what the UFC was clearly using their brand to do, is fraught and not at all uncomplicated. You got to talk about that. Otherwise, you are lying to yourself.
Yeah. I mean, the question never was, are the fights going to be good? That was never the question about this event. The question was never, is the UFC going to make it look good on TV? Because we know that they do. That's the best thing that they do, is a live event television production company. They are probably among the best, maybe the best in all of sports at doing it. And I'm talking about the people who work for the UFC, the people who literally do that are amazing. They always do a good job. And it was no surprise that every shot looked great, that everybody walking through the White House looked great, as long as you could ignore how weird it was that they were actually doing that. That was never the question about this event. But the notion that like focusing on that other stuff is to lose the plot is to like not really understand what the plot was, right? Like the plot was, is the UFC putting on this live fighting event as the public facing element, while behind the scenes the web of political and economical and powerful ties between a presidential administration, which would be weird at any time,
Mm-hmm.
and UFC ownership just like grew and deepened and became stronger during this event. That was the plot, and that was exactly what happened, because the UFC went out and they signed this nebulous quote unquote public private partnership with the State Department, which we don't know anything about, but it sure sounds like they're going to be getting some taxpayer money. They announced a relationship with the cryptocurrency company that is literally owned by the Trumps. They sort of announced this partnership with Tyson Fury at the same time they are trying to kill the Muhammad Ali Act in Congress. So like shout out to the UFC's incredible event staff who probably had to work insane hours to make this passion project come off, to make Dana White and Donald Trump's passion project, to make Ari Emanuel's political influencer mixer come off. Shout out to Cyril Gahn. Shout out to Justin Gaethje, who went out there and essentially saved this shit as far as I'm concerned. But that was never the plot. And frankly, when I was driving home from your house after our live watch party, I thought to myself, that would have been a good night of fights, right? If it was just that, if this had been at T-Mobile, if we weren't doing Donald Trump's birthday party and it was just these fights, that would have been a good night of fights. But you can't just turn the page and suddenly pretend that this was about the fights and the fighters, because that would be a lie. And frankly, like that's what the UFC would want us to do, is to suddenly pretend that this was a normal fight night or a normal numbered event and forget about the weird political wrangling and goofy bullshit that went into it, because that would be to allow them to have their cake and eat it too. They would get to have this big, weird lead up to the event that was totally political and was totally to appease and celebrate this administration, and to further tighten the relationships between this company and the president, that is making everybody more and more money and more powerful. And now we're supposed to forget all that and suddenly be like, well, it was a normal night of fights and the fights were good. Nope, that's not what this was. And I do want to talk about the fights because there's really interesting stuff happening there. But like, you can't just ignore all of the other stuff. You can't do it.
Yeah, especially there's a moment there where we're sitting there and they're playing an ad that is just like shots of army guys doing army guy stuff, blowing things up, shooting machine guns with ominous music laid over and like a Trump voiceover. And then at the end, it says, join the fight, war.gov. And that's where it gets weird, man. That's where you're just sort of like, what is happening? Like there is no domain name, no URL, I think, that maybe more accurately captures a weirdly dystopian moment here in America than finishing your ad with war.gov.
Yeah.
And when we were watching it and you were pouring out the music and the scenes and everything, and be like, do they think this makes us look like the good guys?
Yeah, that was some straight up, that was some bad guy shit right there with the music and the tanks and the just like, if you saw that in a movie, you would know who the bad guys were, and it was those guys.
Yeah, and so like when you have that stuff just like shoved right in there among the event, you would have to undergo some sort of like voluntary lobotomy to just focus on the fights and having a good time looking at the pretty lights and everything, and not think about how that stuff is incorporated in here. That's you must work that in. You said Justin
Hey
Gaethje,
man, honest, if you wanted that, it was all over.
Yeah.
If that's what you wanted, if you wanted people who were just going to focus on the fights, that was basically everyone else in the industry, with some notable exceptions.
You mentioned Justin Gaethje saving this shit.
Yeah, and Cyril Gahn. I got to give a shout out to Cyril Gahn also, because you had 7 fights. I think it's the first time in history that all the fights have ended by KO or TKO, and obviously only having 7 plays into that. But like all of the other fights while enjoyable to watch, they were mismatches.
Yeah.
As as the odds makers saw them, they were all fun to watch, but they weren't considered that competitive. Cyril Gahn and Alex Pereira had a good ass fight, and Cyril Gahn won. It was sort of a pick 'em, but he won. They had a good ass fight. Justin Gaethje and Ilia Topuria had a fucking all-timer in the main event, an all-time great fight, and the guy who was like a 4-1 underdog won.
And
so they saved that shit. They did. They saved it.
One after going through some shit in the fight too.
Yeah.
Because when he starts taking those body shots, and it's rare that we see somebody where they're reacting that much to body shots and they survive it. Just because body shots are one of those things where you start taking those, you don't shrug them off that easily. And so he was dropped by body shots, and usually you go, well, all right, here we go. We're coming to the end now. Now, I think Ilia Topuria fucked up in how he went about dealing with that. I think that I think Ilia Topuria is waking up, first of all, not able to see anything out of his badly swollen eyes, but as he's laying around in the dark, letting his face heal, I think he's probably thinking back through a couple different decisions in this fight and regretting them. But I think a big one is going to be how he chose to go about trying to finish that fight in the second. Because then Justin Gaethje comes out for the third and looks completely recovered and goes right to work, messing him up, damaging him, really diminishing Ilia Topuria with some of his attacks in that third round. And so, like, when you start to see that kind of a swing, I was sitting there thinking about it and being reminded, like, oh yeah, okay, Justin Gaethje doesn't have a ton of different stuff in the toolbox.
Mm-hmm.
But the shit he does have is what you might call the old-fashioned brawlability.
Mm-hmm.
He's got the toughness, and he's just stubborn as hell. And just kind of too hard-headed to go away easily if you don't absolutely make him. And so I think like that kind of a performance to close out the show really did kind of make it.
Yeah, and things are obvious in retrospect, right? After we've seen the fights. But in retrospect, I looked at that fight and I was like, actually, Justin Gaethje turned out to be an absolute nightmare matchup for Ilia Topuria because he was so much bigger, so much longer, hit so much fucking harder, and simply would not be knocked out, right? I think that, like, if I had to guess, Ilia Topuria's gambit in this fight was to go straight at Justin Gaethje, outbox him, and knock him out. And that was a weird strategy. And we said it right when the fight started. Like, he is going about this in a weird way. He is walking straight into the teeth of Justin Gaethje's offense, thinking, I think, I'm going to get this guy before he gets me. Right. And I think that that part of the fundamental philosophy of that was sound, because we did see early on Ilia Topuria get the better of those like technical boxing exchanges, and he was faster, and he did punch the shit out of Justin Gaethje's head and face early on in that fight. But Justin Gaethje just didn't get knocked out. He was just kept doing it. And then he, as you said, knocked him out with a body shot. Justin Gaethje just kept doing it, kept coming, and eventually pounded Ilia Topuria, obviously, into that stoppage between rounds. Also, I think Ilia fucked up when they were on the ground, right? Like, I think he should have kept his position and kept punching instead of he was just trying to roll, flirting with the idea of rolling for an arm bar and then doing all this other weird shit when he could have just stayed on top and kept punching.
I don't think you need to go to the ground with him at all there.
Yeah.
I mean, that seemed just like a blunder to me. And I don't know, maybe he was feeling a little, because it felt like toward the end of that round, he was feeling tired and he was using his position on top on the ground to rest.
Yeah.
But it seemed like he let the fight slip away at that point. The strategy of let me go right at him, get right in his face and fight him there, that I wonder if he just didn't respect Justin Gaethje's skills.
That's exactly what it looked like, right?
It seemed like he just went out there and just like, this guy's got nothing for me. I'm gonna go get him out of here real quick. Because especially where there were moments where he's just standing toe to toe with him right in the pocket, just brawling, and you're just like, bro, you don't have to do this. You have other ways you could go about this, and like the way you're choosing to go about it is giving Justin Gaethje more of an opportunity than we thought that you needed to anyway, when we were sort of looking at this fight on paper. We think you're the slicker boxer, you're quicker. You don't have to just, hey, we both throw haymakers and let's see who can land them. Like, you didn't have to do that at all. And so that made me think, like, if he just had disdain for what Justin Gaethje did. I will also say Gaethje looked a lot better than he did against Paddy Pimblett, man. I mean, I think that was one of the things that made us all kind of go, oh, he's in trouble here against Ilia Topuria. We saw you in that Paddy Pimblett fight where you won, but it got a little dicey at some points there. And also, we looked at it and went, if Paddy was even just a little bit better, he could have got you out of there probably. Yeah. And so we thought, you're going to go from that to Ilia Topuria, you're in for it, man. And he looked much better this time.
All right. I do want to talk about Ilia Topuria a little bit more here. He, quote unquote, what we call in the fight game, quits on his stool, right? Do you think, or how much do you think the nature of this fight, the nature of this loss, and then the fact that he is, quote unquote, retired, loses by retirement in between rounds, do you think that is a stink that stays on Ilia Topuria in any way?
I mean, it depends. Like, his corner seemed like they're the one stopping. I know we heard it was a little confusing. I appreciate our guy Rodrigo del Campo Gonzalez pointing this out on Twitter, where he was just like, you got to remember it was his brother, Ilia Topuria's brother in the corner, who you can hear the audio of him saying, no, we're going to finish the fight. And when we first heard that, I think we thought Ilia Topuria was saying, I'm done, and his brother was trying to convince him, one more round, you can do it, you got it in you. And he was pointing out, no, his brother was the one who is like waving it off and stopping it. And he's speaking in a second language. When he's saying we're going to finish the fight, he is saying to the referee or the medical staff and the people in the inspectors in the corner, we're calling it here.
Oh, like, okay. I didn't even know that.
Yeah, like that was Rodrigo's interpretation. And I agree with him that it was probably, that's him saying, like, we're going to end it. Like, we're going, like, finish as in bring to an end right now, because he can't see. Both his eyes are fucked up at that point. He's clearly very diminished. His ability to do anything to Justin Gaethje is rapidly vanishing. He'd already taken a pretty bad beating. He took the kind of beating that can affect a fighter for the rest of his career. We've seen guys never come back quite the same after taking that kind of a damage. So I think, especially it's your brother, seeing him and being like, there's no point in us going out there just to get some like tough guy points of so Paddy Pimblett won't say we quit on the stool. It's not worth that risk, that ongoing risk to his health to do that. And I think that was probably the right call there. I think if he comes back here, seen already Ilia Topuria on social media being like, I'm not done, we're going to have a rematch. If he came back, if they fought again and he fought smarter and he won, I think that stink doesn't stick to him. I think that people realize, hey, it can be like that. You fucked up. You paid the price. You got humbled a little bit. Ilia Topuria had been up there. It been flying on them wax wings pretty close to the goddamn sun. So maybe this was a necessary thing that had to happen there. I wondered about that moment. I've seen it talked about a lot, where the doctor comes in, looking at the eye, and it seems like the doctor is saying we should stop this fight, and then it continues for one more round. Now, it is worth noting those rules can change somewhat between jurisdictions, but while we use terms like doctor stoppage, but usually the doctor does not have that power. The doctor has the power to recommend to the referee that he stop it, but the doctor does not have that ability to just like unilaterally on his own decide to call it off. It's just that we don't usually see the doctor appear to recommend one course of action to the referee, who then goes, thank you for your input. Thanks for coming. Why don't you go to have a seat right over there on the side of the cage? We're going to keep fighting. Like, that's not usually how it goes. I thought that's clearly going to be a thing people focus on, especially because when we're looking at, hey, if he can't see, if it only gets worse from there, people go, what's the point of having the doctor come in and do the exam if we're not going to listen to his recommendation?
I do want to make sure that we say this, that like, if there is any person who deserves to have a moment with the undisputed lightweight title before it's all said and done about him, it's probably Justin Gaethje. Like, I feel like it's great for him to get this opportunity to be the undisputed champion. He is one of the guys that you feel like really, really deserves to have that on his resume, to have that accolade, on his list, that he's been doing this forever and had always, been interim champion, but now is undisputed champion. That's great. That's great for Justin Gaethje, and he put on an all-time performance. Probably a fight of the year candidate, I would think, and one of the greatest upset performances that we've seen in UFC history. So, just don't want to get too deep in the weeds without saying a fucking great performance from Justin Gaethje. So phenomenal. Can't really say any more nice stuff about him. But Ilia Topuria and Alex Pereira both lost at this event. And so now you have Cyril Gane and you have Justin Gaethje as your lightweight champion and your interim heavyweight champion. Topuria and Pereira were the two guys that we were really hanging this on, honestly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like those were the guys who were supposed to win this shit and be the big stars moving forward. And they did not. They did not win. So I wonder, this was a good night of fights. The co-main and the main event were very good. But I wonder in some ways where it leaves the UFC with the two guys that they really wanted to promote both lost. Now, obviously, they have so many fucking guys. It almost doesn't matter who they have, but it's just, those were supposed to be the guys that we're coming out of this thing with. And instead, we got Cyril Gane, where John Jones is just going to look at the camera and shrug. Jim from The Office over here, right? And Tom Aspinall's nowhere to be found at this event. And so I feel like heavyweight is an interesting scenario now with Cyril Gane back on top, because we remember, right? I've been hard on Cyril Gane, and I want to say I kind of take it back. Like, he seems like a great dude. This was an exciting fight from him. He finishes Alex Pereira. He looked great. I don't deny him the honor of being like interim UFC heavyweight champion, but all of that aside, we remember what happened to him when he went out there against John Jones. And we remember that he went out there and lost to Francis Ngannou when Francis Ngannou basically had one leg. So I wonder now, where does this leave the heavyweight division to have Cyril Gane, who at the end of the show, they're saying, oh, he could be one of the greatest heavyweights of all time in the UFC. And it's like, bro, come on, we remember. So where does this leave the heavyweight division, where you have this guy who lost to the other two, probably consensus number one top couple heavyweights in the world? And it kind of seems like if John Jones decided the arthritis wasn't that bad, he could probably roll back in and beat Cyril Gane again pretty easy.
Who wants to see that?
Nobody. But
I don't want to see that.
Like, if Tom Aspinall's eye is fucked up and maybe our relationship with him as the UFC is so bad, we don't even bring him to the fucking White House where there's going to be an interim heavyweight title fight. Like, once again, heavyweight, where are we?
Yeah, I mean, I was a little bit surprised. I saw, Aaron Bronstetter always does the roundup of Dana White talking to the media after these events. And when asked about, okay, so does this mean Cyril Gane, Tom Aspinall, we're doing it again, brother, as soon as Tom's eyes are healed? And he said something along the lines of, I don't even want to talk about or think about Cyril Gane and Tom Aspinall right now. And you're just like, what? Why not? That should be exactly what you're doing, is pivoting right from that to being like, hey, we just set up a big rematch here. You can sell the shit out of that, honestly, because you have Cyril Gane going out there, getting some respect, showing like when he gets to do his stuff, Cyril Gane is actually quite good. Everybody talking about Alex Pereira like he's some kind of boogeyman, and Cyril Gane went out there and walloped his ass. And then you could have Tom Aspinall coming back and being like, I have not forgotten what I've been through just trying to get my eyes right, how the risk to my sight, to my long-term health that was caused by this guy fucking cheating and sticking his fingers in my eyes, and I want to go knock his head off. You could really do something with that if you were, I don't know, a fight promoter, and you're coming out of these fights, getting ready to promote the next one, that seems like the obvious, most logical choice. So I think that's a big fight. Yeah. It's a bigger fight now than it was the first time by far. So that the thing about Ciryl Gane is that my opinion about him remains, I think, largely unchanged, which is against a certain kind of opponent where he gets to fight his kind of fight and the other guy can't force him out of it, he's good. He's a big guy who moves really well for a big guy. He doesn't take unnecessary risks. He has pretty good defense for a heavyweight striker, and is a dangerous guy. It's just that there's a piece of his game that for every time we've seen it tested seems extremely vulnerable.
Yeah.
And so there's only certain types of fighters it looks like he could look really good against, but he does look really, really good against those guys. And so it makes it so that like the matchmaking determines a whole lot about how excited I'm willing to get about Ciryl Gane.
We got this question from @PissedOffLawyer, who wrote, I realize there may be some more pressing stories coming out of the UFC White House event, but what the hell was going on with that Tyson Fury segment? It was straight up confusing to see a British boxer, that is an athlete from a different country who competes in a different sport, receive a special walkout at an MMA event ostensibly celebrating America. Was this really a case of Dana being petty enough to waste time on the broadcast to get a dig at Eddie Hearn or other boxing promoters to show that he signed Fury? If so, why didn't Fury actually announce a deal with Zuffa Boxing? And when he said he'd defer to Dana, why didn't we hear from Dana? What wouldn't that be the logical next step? What is happening? Question mark, question mark, question mark, question mark. This was bizarre to bring Tyson Fury out to make, I just want to stress again, the long walk through the White House to cage side, which we saw multiple times during this event, which I guess the optics were good if you tried to forget about how weird and potentially illegal this event was. But here comes Tyson Fury down to cage side, does the interview with John Anik. John Anik acts as if more information was supposed to be communicated in this interview. John Anik desperately tried to wrestle Tyson Fury through this interview to find out some information, which is not really what UFC cage side interviews are known for. But it seemed like John Anik tried so damn hard to get Tyson Fury to say some news, and Tyson Fury would not do it. And then you show Tyson Fury sitting at cage side with a couple of guys who are signed to Zuffa Boxing, right? And so it leaves this thing of like, in the words of @PissedOffLawyer, what is happening? Why did we do this?
That's the thing to me, is it's like, you could, if you just wanted to show that he's there, you could have just showed that he's there. Like was having him sit with those guys, be like, hey, Tyson Fury is there. We did a whole ass walkout, stopped the broadcast. And it's not like we were doing a bunch of these cage side interviews with different people there that would have made it seem like, okay, he's just one more guy who we're talking to. Clearly it seemed like we got something to tell you, but we're not going to tell you. And especially the way John Anik was going about it, where it seemed like he's trying to get the information out of you, man. He seems to know what the information is and trying to get you to say it. You won't say it, and nobody says it. And then we just go, why'd you waste 10 minutes of my life at this already delayed broadcast on this? You didn't give me any information at all.
Yeah.
Other than that Tyson Fury is there and he's not wearing a shirt under a sport coat.
Yeah. It seemed like maybe, either Tyson Fury went into business for himself out there and just decided not to make the announcement that they thought he was going to make, so we got a non-announcement announcement. Or maybe we thought we were going to have a deal done, that we were going to have an announcement. We had already planned for this thing to happen during the show, and then the deal didn't get done, so we had to have Tyson Fury come out and make a non-announcement announcement to John Anik. I don't know. It was very strange. All right, next question this week came to us from Bob Sacamano, who writes, the actual fighting part of the Sugar Show is real. He's a brilliant fighter, but at the same time, is he maybe kind of a charisma vacuum? I don't mean that as a quote, he's boring in the cage, because he clearly isn't. I mean that everything around him feels like it has been workshopped in advance. McGregor, Poatan, or the Diaz brothers all have genuine charisma. Their moments feel organic. With O'Malley, it all feels like someone trying to reverse engineer star power rather than naturally having it. The salute after the Zahabi finish is a perfect example. In theory, that should be a huge superstar moment, but I always feel like I can see the planning meeting behind it. It's never quite as cool, funny, dangerous, or iconic as I think he imagined it would be. So my question is, can someone be a genuine UFC star if their fighting style is charismatic, but their actual personality is weirdly meh? Or is O'Malley proof that in the TikTok era, aesthetics and knockouts can do most of the work, even if the actual person isn't naturally compelling? I mean, I think Sean O'Malley is a star for the
Yeah.
UFC. They treat him like that. They put him in those positions. He seems very popular with a certain segment of the population. I kind of agree that it seems like he has already planned out his celebrations in
Yeah.
advance. I don't necessarily know if that's bad. Like, it's like, hey man, I expect to win. What happens next? You know what I mean? But like, I feel like this. I feel like this is a valid question that also kind of answers itself because Sean O'Malley is in fact a star for the UFC.
I kind of have to wonder if Seinfeld tertiary character who never actually appears on screen in the show, Bob Sacamano, might be revealing that a generation gap. I think the kids love Sean O'Malley's bullshit, man. They eat it up. I've been at events where when he walks out, and for last few years now, like he gets a huge crowd pop. The younger fans especially really react to Sean O'Malley. I think that his stuff, while it might not work on you, really does work on a whole segment of the fan base. And I get what you're saying about feeling like, it's not as if I completely disagree with that line that it seems like you sat around beforehand being like, here's what would be awesome if you did it. But aren't we always asking fighters to put a little more thought into how you're selling yourself? Especially if a moment like that, where like Josh Hokit definitely sat around thinking, I must say this edgy shit about Michelle Obama when I get on the mic. Like he really thought about that. And Sean O'Malley, if he thought about, hey, like, what's he going to say to himself? Like, if I drop him and there's a moment before the fight's actually been stopped, but when I think I've got the stoppage in the bag, I'll stop and do a salute. Because that's risky, man. You could fuck up and look dumb doing that. You could, if the guy pops right back up, we've seen people who screw up, miss an opportunity to finish a fight in a moment like that, and it costs them. And so to be able to pull that off in the moment, I kind of don't care if you planned it beforehand, because you had to get like opportunity, and you had to create that opportunity for yourself, and then also had the balls to go for it in that split second moment when it's there. It is still kind of dope. It works.
Yeah. Do we have to spare a moment for Josh Hokit?
I don't know. What else is there to say about this fucking guy? I mean,
only that he could win without the oral. Right? I guess it reminds me of that skit, and I Think You Should Leave, where they were doing the baby pageant, and the dad comes out and says that there's a controversy. Somebody asked him to do the oral, and he's like, I feel like Jart Harley Barvis could win even without the oral. I feel like Josh Hokit would be a big deal even without this bullshit, man. He's got what, 5 wins in the UFC if you go back to his Dana White Contender Series bout. All of them except for the Curtis Blades one are TKOs, and the Curtis Blades one was a fucking outstanding fight. You just knocked out Derek Lewis at the White House. I feel like he would be a big deal at heavyweight just fighting the way he fights and not doing all this other bullshit, man. He would.
Yeah, I mean, the other bullshit did play a role in him getting some of these bigger fights and getting some of these opportunities. But you're right that, especially at heavyweight and everything, and fighting the way he fights, you don't need to do it. And you also put yourself in a situation where now your antics are so much part of the story that you're going to have to come up with new shit every single time. And especially where it's like, the point of your shtick is that it's awful and everybody hates it, but it forces us to have a reaction to it, because that sucks. You know, that's gonna get old, man. It already is old for a lot of us. But you're right that maybe if you're a bantamweight, in the crowded field, you need to do some stuff like that to stand out. At heavyweight, it's a lot less necessary. And it just, like, the thing I would worry about a little bit if I were him is the UFC clearly doesn't love it, man. They kicked you out of one of the press conferences. Dana White, of all people, you put Dana White in a position where he had to defend the Obamas. You know he hates that. They're not loving this stuff, man. And it just, again, like, I hate even sitting around and talking about the guy because I feel like we're giving you attention, which is all you want for this just desperate pleas for attention. And it sucks. I don't like it.
We saw Conor McGregor pop up for a minute and 30 seconds, 2 minutes. This was a very short promo or interview segment that they aired with Conor McGregor and Max Holloway and Joe Rogan, where Max Holloway and Conor McGregor simply yelled at each other, talked over each other in a way that ultimately was completely unintelligible. Mm-hmm. And Joe Rogan sat between them looking like his stream had frozen.
Yes. Yeah.
Like just motionless, holding the mic up by his mouth and just letting them roll. And this Conor McGregor had teased this earlier in the day that we were going to have a big segment on the UFC White House card. And man, if this is a preview to our lead up to Max Holloway and Conor McGregor, count me out until fight night.
I mean, I thought your stance already was let me know when these guys are actually in the cage.
Let me know when Conor's in the cage. I know Max is going to be there. Max is going to show up. Mystic Max, as he calls himself, which is actually kind of good. That's actually kind of a good line. But yeah, he's going to be there. Conor McGregor, I don't know. This, I guess, was my segue into asking you. I mean, you can't overstate how done Michael Chandler looked out there against Mauricio Hufi. You can't really underline enough that he looked absolutely washed, done like dinner. Like, we don't need to see Michael Chandler anymore. That this is maybe the best thing for him if he wasn't allowed to go out there and fight high-level MMA stars anymore. But that also makes me wonder, is he done? Or is he the perfect opponent for Conor McGregor if Conor McGregor loses to Max Holloway?
Well, the thing is that what Conor McGregor is going to object to about fighting a guy like Michael Chandler now is that, is there any glory in beating this dude after everybody else has already done it? And after the rest of us are walking around being like, he's got nothing left. So you would need Conor McGregor to be in a situation where he's like, I'll take any win you got. Whatever victory I can get.
If he loses to Max, isn't he kind of there though?
I don't, because it's like, as time goes by, even if he falls a little bit, Michael Chandler just continues to fall like a sharper trajectory than he is. So I don't know. This one, especially, the UFC clearly put this fight together as a showcase for Mauricio Hufi. Michael Chandler, the official stats on it were that he landed 3 strikes and only attempted 12. Just really didn't do anything offensive in this fight and got absolutely handled. And it's a bummer to see, because you're just like looking at it now and you're like, where do you think this goes, Mike, from here? Nowhere good. I don't think it's anywhere you want to go. I don't think that what's the best, most reasonable scenario for what happens with your career from here on out? You're not going to see us at the top, man. It's not going to happen from here. There's just, the UFC is going to look at you and be like, who can we have him get his ass beat against that would make at least a little bit of sense and would help that other person who we have a future interest in promoting? Do you really want to keep doing that? Because that's what's in store for you at this point.
I guess the other interesting what happens next question is probably Alex Pereira, right? He's 38, I think. Had some terrible allegations come out against him in a respected German language news platform, the week leading up to this White House card. Voluntarily gave up the light heavyweight title to go up to heavyweight, fight for the interim title against Cyril Gahn, ends up getting badly knocked out. I guess you can go back down to 205 and continue on your voyage there, but I mean, and that's probably what he does end up doing, I guess. But this is one where you look at it and you're sort of like, I don't know, Alex. Like, what, in terms of, as you said, glory for Conor McGregor, I don't know what is left for Alex Pereira to totally do here either.
I mean, the thing is, if you go back down and you say, like, all right, heavyweight didn't work out, I'm not going to be a light heavyweight again. You gained a lot of weight, kind of, to go up. That was big part of the story, right? Was how big Alex Pereira got for this one. Showed up there, in the 250s, right? Bigger than Cyril Gane. Now you're going to take all that off and go back at this age, late 30s, and be a light heavyweight again. And when you get down there, you got guys like Carlos Zulberg, kind of it's not necessarily a gimme that you're going to roll back in there and just reclaim your spot. So it is a tough situation for him. I think he probably doesn't regret taking the shot at it. Like, that is something that we've praised him for before, and he deserves like the credit for just being like, all right, nobody else would. Other people we saw get titles, as soon as you started to talk to them about going up, and so they wanted somebody else to come down. They didn't want to keep going up and up and up the way he has. But I do think that when I was watching him in that Cyril Gane fight, I went, we might have seen the high water mark at this point for Alex Pereira.
Yeah. I mean, if you're Josh Hokit and you're out there being like, well, I did do a lot to call out Alex Pereira this week leading up to the fight, but that is when I thought he was going to win, though.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're probably maybe not worth it for you if you're the coming man in the division to backtrack to fight Alex Pereira. I don't know.
There it is.
All right. I did want to read this one that we got from Pierre Charles L'Enfant, who you can look up. I believe he's a 18th century French artist and nobleman or something. A subject line, a report from the lawn, it says. There were quite a few negative possibilities swirling through my mind as my wife and I made our way into DC. This could be annoyingly political. It could rain out. 85,000 drunk, hot, and sweaty shit-eating wild people might not be the best to be around. Oh, and the card might suck. However, for all the consternation, this thing was fun as hell to participate in. We didn't wait in a single line. Zero security concerns. Staff was walking around handing out water and snacks at no cost. They showed Trump a couple of times and nobody really cared. It was about the fighters and the White House, not who was in it. Watching this thing surrounded by the national monuments with the flyovers and the fireworks was a truly bonding experience for everyone there. We walked away impressed by the entire production. Now, I assume he's talking about being across the street at the Ellipses, and that this is not the code name of a Washington elite who was allowed inside the gates to the White House, because then people walking around with drinks and snacks at no charge would be expected. If they're charging you, you could start asking some questions. But hey, man, it did seem like they got a ton of people across the street at the Fan Fest watching the thing on the big screen TV. If you had a great time and you thought this was excellent and you came away impressed, I love it, man. That's amazing. I'm glad you did that. I'm glad you had that experience. I'm glad you liked it. I'm glad that was the mood in the crowd. More power to you, man. Like, I'm not gonna. I feel like it's nice to get this report from across the street and hear like, hey, man, everyone had a great time.
It is. It does say something. I mean, this is the thing though that was always going to be tricky about the UFC allying so hard with the Trump administration, and it was clearly that it was the Trump administration and not just whoever happened to be president, is that Trump has been such a divisive figure in American politics. And at this point, he's been in American politics for 10 years. We know who he is. We've seen who he is. When that guy tells you, I'm going to throw some big birthday party celebrations for America, it's really hard to just turn your brain off and be like, yep, that's what he's doing. That's all it is. It's about a celebration for America, because nothing he ever does just seems to be. It's always about his own ego, his own agenda, shit like that. And so when you go and like it's weird that you even have to feel weird about going to something like that and enjoying it, because you're kind of looking around and being like, what's the angle here? How am I being bamboozled? Because I know it's got to be something. And so like, that's what sucks. That's one of the many things that sucks. about not only this entire administration, but the UFC's relationship to it, is it makes it hard to just sort of relax and enjoy something like this without wondering, like, in what ways am I playing into something bad?
All right. That's going to do it. Thanks for listening to the Co-Main Event podcast, everybody. Thanks for the support. We appreciate it. Thanks for listening. We'll be over on the Patreon page all week. If you want to check us out there, patreon.com/co-main event. Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll talk to you soon. As for right now, we are done. We are through. We are out.